Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to create these free mobile UIs in Figma. I also want to remind you that I have a free UI UX design course that you can access by clicking the link in the description. But now without further ado, let's jump right into the tutorial. So let's get started. Now we're going to create a frame as the very first thing, and we're going to select phone and we're going to go with the iPhone 11 Pro Max. And let's double click on the first layer and we're going to name it to 1. And over here, let's start adding some text. Now this is going to be the onboarding screen. So let's create this text. All right, so far so good. Now I'm going to use the K button in order to increase the font size. Alternatively, you can simply go over here and change the font size to whatever you prefer. And let's also change the font, which in this case is going to be Montserrat. And there we go. All right, so far so good. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's change this. Actually, let's just change it to welcome. All right, now we're going to create the subheadline for this, and let's change this one here to all right, so let's make it even a little bit smaller since this is going to be a description text, and let's increase the line height over here, and let's make also this text a little bit gray but with some sort of a bluish tint to it. Let's go with 16, and we're going to bring it up just a notch. All right, so far so good. We're going to write swipe right here, or actually let's add a button to continue. So we're going to write the continue text. We're also going to add a rectangle around this button. Let's center this in both areas, and let's go ahead and use the official blue color, which we're going to use throughout this app. I'm going to round the corners just a little bit, and we're going to make this text white. All right, so far so good. Let's make this smaller. I'm going to make 20 by 20. We're going to round it up all the way so we have a nice and even circle. Now I'm going to duplicate these dots just a few times. We're going to make these sort of a light gray color. Let's group this together. Let's center this. And we are in a good position so far. All right, so far so good. Now let's center this. Let's group this one here. Let's center it. And the same also for this one, so that it's nice and even. All right, perfect. Now we want to essentially bring these elements down so that they're going to look better overall. And now we're going to leverage a free resource in order to find amazing illustrations, which is undraw.com. So let's go over here and let's actually add the blue color. So I'm going to copy the hex file, the hex value, and I'm going to copy it over here. So let's double click on this. Let's click on enter. And now we want something for the onboarding screens. We need to figure out what illustration is actually going to be most beneficial for the specific screen. Maybe something around these lines. Maybe we definitely want something which is going to be vertically aligned. So we don't want anything which is too horizontal, otherwise it won't really fit the frame all that well. So as you can see in this moment, we're just about It's literally just about figuring out what could potentially work. And at this stage, I'm adding the first SVG, and I'm going to probably try a few more icons, simply because whenever I'm doing this design work, I always wanted to have options available, and you don't really want to be constrained to just like one option. You always want to have options on the table, and yeah, that's pretty much how I like to operate. And whenever you see multiple concepts, there's always going to be like one or two that is going to stand out. So this is something which is quite important, in my opinion. So let's also download this one. Looks pretty cool. And let's also go with one more, which is probably going to be this one here. All right, so far so good. Now let's add the first one. As you can see, it's quite a bit bigger, so we're going to use the scale tool. So let's bring it down, and here we go. All right, so far so good. And this is the very first screen. Let's create a duplicate of this, holding Shift plus the Option key. We're going to bring it over here. Now let's go ahead. Let's add this one here. Let's make it smaller. And let's select this entire thing, unframe it and group it. We're going to bring it down. I almost want to match the other one so that the style is consistent overall. And I'm already seeing how this one could look pretty interesting. Now let's try the third one, which is this one here. So let's ungroup it. Let's group it one more time. And also this one definitely has some good potential. So I'm going to cancel the previous one, bring it over here, scale it down a bit in order to make these browser windows fit nicely. And right, that will do. So let's select this, and let's increase this size, and then this size. And all right, so far so good. Now from what I'm seeing, I'm probably going to go with either the first one or the second one. Now let's probably just add a second step in this onboarding. I'm going to add another text. So just make it one word. Let's add some random text. And there we go. All right, so far so good. Now what we're gonna do is we're actually going to create the dashboard screen. So I'm gonna get rid of this and bring all of this up. I'm going to unlink it, and let's start with the very first one. It's going to be the filters. All right, so far so good. Now let's use nucleo icons in order to add a filters icon right here and there. And let's go ahead and we're going to probably add something around these lines to look cool. All right, so far so good. It's actually more of a funnels icon, but that's totally fine. make it just a little bit smaller. And what we're gonna do is we're actually going to also have a profile picture on the right. Let's just stack it over here. And let's center it. Let's make it bigger. Let's go ahead and add an image with the Unsplash plugin. And we're going to go with the first one. Let's use the crop. And so far, so good. All right, now that we have our base, what we're gonna do next is we're going to add some tags. So let's add and for the tags, we're going to actually use the auto layout features, which are available for us to leverage in Figma. So actually, let me just create the tag before I actually create the auto layout sync. Let's add these. Let's add this one as well. And so far, so good. All right, now in order to create the auto layout, just select the two layers, click on auto layout, and boom, we have it. So as you can see, the moment I create a new one, these are going to resize automatically in a fast and efficient way. And I'm going to remove the auto layout in this case, and simply going to invert. Actually, I'm going to simply make it like that, and that will do. All right, so far, so good. Let's just make it one step smaller. And we're pretty much set. All right. Now we're also going to add a rectangle beneath. Let's add some sort of a drop shadow below. Let's decrease this one, the padding. All right, so far so good. Let's bring these ones up just a little bit. I just want to double check that the distribution is all set and good. All right, so we're definitely in a good position. I also want to add a hamburger menu right here. Let's bring it here. And I'm going to add it all right, so far so good. Probably going to make this one 50%, and we're pretty much set. All right, now let's add the actual elements. So let's use Facebook. Let's make it smaller. And let's decrease the size of these ones too. And And let's go ahead and find the Facebook icon, always from Nucleo. Now let's bring this one here and let's add the start of the message. All right, so far so good. Let's try and make this one light. Okay. Yeah, actually, let's just keep it as it is. I think that'll work. Maybe let's make these one step bigger. And there we go. Now let's add a date. We're going to add a calendar icon. All right, this one will do the job. And there we go. Okay, we're pretty much set when it comes to these elements. And we probably want some sort of pin icon. Let's figure out maybe like a star icon. And there goes my alarm clock. All right, let's add it right here. Let's make this one smaller. Let's turn this into a gray color. And actually, I'm not too sure about the star. Maybe we want to go with something more subtle or with less complexity when it comes to these borders. Can I do? No. Okay, that will do. All right, now let's grab this line. Let's copy it over here. Let's bring it down just a notch. And let's also change the color. All right, so far so good. So now that we have our base, what we want to do is to essentially create a duplicate of this. And I'm going to, we could technically use symbols, but I wanted some further changes in the icons here, and I'm not willing to do that for this one-off design. So that's the reason why I'm simply going to copy it manually. But if it was a client project, I would highly recommend you to actually use the symbols inside of Figma. That would be the most efficient way to go, really. Whenever you're creating something that has a layer of repetition to it, that's yeah, it's always good to keep in mind. Let's bring all of these up, and this is going to serve us as the bottom menu. All right, now let's add a few more social medias. I'm gonna go with Twitter. Let's add Instagram and also Snapchat. Let's remove the previous logo. Select the Instagram one. Let's bring it up. And let's also go with adapting the Twitter one. All right, so far so good. Let's just change the text. Oh, and also we're missing the bottom one, which is going to be Pinterest. All right. And let's just change also these ones right here. As you can see, I already have some lip zoom set in place. And so far, so good. Now what we're missing is the bottom menu, which is going to be essentially a collection of icons. We want to go with glyph icons, and I'm going to simply add them here below before we actually bring them on top. And we're missing one more icon, and let's go with this one right here. All right, so far so good. Center this, and also let's go ahead over here and let's create let's increase the size of these icons. So maybe something around these size. No, a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe just a touch bigger, and yeah, that will do. So what I'm gonna do is simply bring all these other icons next to each other and just set the tone for this. And here we go. All right, maybe a little bit smaller though. That will be helpful. All right, so far so good. Let's bring them right here. Let's use the distribute horizontal spacing. Let's center them. And at this point, I'm simply going to copy the same color and add a blue color on the one which is selected, which is in this case the home screen. All right, so pretty much set and good to go. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I want to remind you, sorry, I can't even talk at the end of a design session. I also want to remind you that I have a free course on learning the basics of UI UX design if you click in the link in the description, as well as a lot of free assets from these videos. So those are including also the source files. So feel free to check them out if you're interested, and I'll see you in the next video.